What's up everyone? Welcome to another painting live tutorial. My name is Goro Fujita and today I'm going to cover color and light. So what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna go over some basics, talk about reference images here. You can see some pictures that I took. I'm gonna talk about this, and then I'm gonna do 3 scenes, probably sunny, overcast, and night. I will try to get through all of these, so that's a lot to go through. So but let's start here. So basically today's lesson will be mainly covering white light, right? So not colored light, like orange light or blue light, because that gets really difficult. However, I'm gonna do diffuse lighting, like overcast scenario, and nighttime. Nighttime is kind of bluish light, but it's still moonlight is still kind of like a white light, right? It's just lack of light that makes it look bluer. So whenever you try to do lighting, it's really important to look at reference. And at this point, after like 15 years of studying, there's a lot of stuff that I can just wing, right? But when I do a job or something like that, when I do freelance work or something, or work on movies, I will definitely always look for reference, because there's so much to learn. And one of the things about lighting is you can never outlearn the subject. It goes on and on and on, just like animation, right? You can always learn something new. But today I'm gonna, because it's such a complex subject, today I'm gonna focus on direct light. So you have for example, here in this reference, you see the highlight area here, and then you see the shadow color here, right? So mainly how light works is we have usually a key light, right, which comes from here right now. So you see it here, you have the highlights over here. So this is the main light source. This is the key. This is in this case, this is the sunlight, right? And then we have the thing called fill light. So fill is anything, the indirect lighting that fills in the shadow colors, right? And usually
also called ambient light, yeah, in some programs.
Yeah, you can call it ambient light. Yeah, I like to call it fill. I mean, there's, I think key is also called they have different names for that too, But yeah, ambient light is kind of also for example, on a gray day, you only have ambient light, right? You have not a real key light. So yeah, and then let me see if there's something here. Yeah, this is I think this is good here. This section is called bounce. So in general, and there's terms like rim lights and stuff like that, but in general, I always think of these three. And these three will always correlate to each other and create a lighting scenario, right? So so I'm gonna get deeper into this, but let me delete this here and break it down. So basically, I usually start to paint with environment, because the environment lighting and the environment will determine the colors of the character in that environment. So if I start with a character, I cannot, it's really difficult for me to paint him, to put him in a lighting scenario later, because I don't have the environment that defines the actual local colors, right? So in here you see grass, you think of grass as green, right? But what light does, what the key light does usually, is to reveal the actual local color. And a lot of beginner mistakes, the main beginner mistake, is that people start with green. This is my grass, right? Highlight, if I want to go to highlight, I'm gonna add white. And if I go to shadow, I add black. And that's the most common mistake that people do. Yeah. And then you end up having something milky looking like this. But in reality, what light does, it brings the local color back. It reveals the local color. You see, this is the green, but then the shadow is a very darker, cooler green. And the shadow color is defined by the sky. So you see the sky is blue, right? So the sky is reflected in the shadow. The direct light will reveal the local color, but then in the shadow, you see how blue this is, the concrete, right? And so let's say like the concrete color is something warmer, like this, right? This is actually the local color that the sunlight will bring back. So how do I start, right? So I usually think of like, if I have a blue sky, I think of the local color like it's something like I think of the shadow color first. So because it's a blue sky, the shadow will be kind of like cool. So I choose cooler colors here. And then maybe we have sand over here. And then what the light does, the moment the key light hits this thing, it brings the local color back. So we have the concrete here, we have the grass here, and then we have the sand, which is, let me change the concrete color to maybe something darker. And then the sand is a little bit more yellow. So now the sunlight hits the section and it brings back the local color. And then it looks like it's being lit, right? So this is the basic principle, but let me go through the other references here. So this is a beautiful reference to, this is a picture I took in Mexico. So I was at an event and I looked around and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Because here you can see clearly the key light, and it's coming from above, right? Pretty straight down from the top. You have the top portions that reveal the local color. So it's a white chair. So in the highlights, you see the white. In the highlights, you see the greens or the yellows, right? And here the browns. But then you have this beautiful fill light, which is like this bluish color. But at the same time, because the chair is angled like this, it's catching all the bounce light, right? So this is a side view of this chair, like this, right? So you see this is totally green because it's catching all this bounce light from here. So this is like really beautiful, like how you can see how light works. And you can see here, these surfaces are not facing down towards the grass, so that's why they are bluer. And the areas that are like facing straight up are even more blue, right? So this is like a really, really cool reference. Same here. So look at what the light is doing, right? It's bringing the local color back. So this is not like a green pool table. It's like this teal colored one. The shadow color is like this cool, darker teal, but then the local color gets revealed by the lighting. Right? Same with the balls here. You know, like you have the orange, you have the red, and you see that the highlight is actually not going to white, right? It's actually just bringing back the main color. So this is like, this might sound logical to you because it is logical, but when you actually do it, you will notice that you don't do it. It's like really, really hard to do, right? Here, look at this peacock here. This is like a really good example for how strong bounce light can be. So you have like, so there's some issues here, and you know, this is not like the real color. This is just like the camera overexposing. So you have to be careful with photographs because the range, the dynamic range is much less than what humans can actually see. Right, so that's something to be aware of. That's why it's always better to learn from life than from photo references. But if you can't go outside or if you don't have the time, then it's also okay to learn from photos. I learned mostly from photos, but you have to do it right. That's something that I wanted to mention. And then here, you have the key light coming from here. So you have this portion lit, which brings the local color back. It's like this bright yellow greenish. Then you have the shadow here. So then the shadow gets casted on the peacock here, but then the light overshoots and lights up this area and brings back the local color, which is white, right? But then you have those beautiful blues because it's blue sky above. It's the same day as here, or something like this. So yeah, it's a sunny day, and you can tell the color of the sky by looking at the shadow. Because the shadow is that kind of purplish blue, you know that it's a blue sky with, it's not overcast at all, right? So you can actually tell the color of the sky. But then look at this section, right? This is all brown, and this is all coming from this. So this bounce light is shooting up. and really heating up the shadow color here, right? And then if you look at this, because we have a plane change, this is getting filled by sky fill, and it's blue. So this is like a really cool example, and I like using white as a color because white reflects most of the light and absorbs the least. So it's like a really cool object to work with. I will have a lot of whites in my character too today, so I can explain everything you see here in practice. This is a photo of my wife. Yep.
Just like continuing with what you're talking about. This is super interesting, and to me, what I feel like is like a good way to wrap your head around is like every object is reflective in a way.
Yeah. And
only there's different levels of reflectionness or reflectiveness, like depending on the material of the object, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something, like it gets pretty deep too, material properties, So today I won't be able to cover that, but dependent on material, the reflectivity and also the way they absorb color and stuff changes completely, But I will do a simple breakdown for today. I will maybe get a little bit into material, but I want to cover like the concept of key, fill, and bounce. And the last reference I have here, this is like we went out into the woods taking a walk. This is my wife here, but it's really cool to see how blue the shadows get, how much fill they get right here. It's like really, really cool, right? While the highlights are really hot here. And you can see this is again overexposed, like the ground and stuff. In real life, it doesn't look like that. It looks more like this, right? It's just like the camera exposure, so you have to be careful about this. But here, the sunlight comes from, this is the key light, and really brings back the local color here of the white shirt. And it's overexposing the black leggings here. But look at how warm and how bright this is. The light is coming from here, but this area is getting hit by this tree. See, like the light comes from above, hits this tree. See, like this whole area, and this just lights up her chest area, right? Like this whole front side is just lit indirectly by reflective light. And this is like amazing to me how bright it gets. And then in the shadow colors here, you see the blue again, the fill. Because there's nothing here to reflect the sun towards that body, right? So let's say there's a tree here. Even if there was a tree here, the sun would reflect this direction. So there's nothing going into this direction, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys see the parallax, but I can just rotate a little bit. So yeah, so that's why this area is blue, right? And then this area is even bluer because it's almost directly facing the sky. Yeah. So this is like the basic concept. Whenever I paint, I think of these things like every time, right? And let me start like, so what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to try to do these scenes. So simply said, this is the sky color. We have the overcast. We have the sunny where we have the sky is cool. The ground is warm. In overcast, it's usually the opposite. The sky is warm and the ground is cool. In relationship, right? Like, so, and then nighttime, like it turns like everything turns kind of cool because of lack of light. You have like very little amount of light. So okay, so let me build the scene first. I built like this little alien character, by the way. So I'm going to put this into the scenes, this guy, and you can see this is the local color. This is what the sunlight will surface. So this is not going to be the way I paint the character. But let me start painting an environment first. So I'm going to create a group here, call it like, let's call it sunny. And then I create a layer in there. And then let me see what time it is. Okay, we're 15 minutes in.
So you're saying that you won't start with local colors on when you draw the character the first time, when you paint the character the first time, you're already painting the character thinking about the environment that it's going to be in, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the shadow color, actually. So
okay.
yeah, so I'm going to, but the thing is like because in Quill you can colorize easily, right? Um, I actually that's the same way I work in Photoshop. I create a mask first, so I don't worry too much about the color when I create the character, you know. But once I start lighting it, the moment I think about light, I make sure that my initial default is already like shadow color. So you will see it in a bit the way I work, right? So
Meaning the fill color.
the fill color, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
So let me create like a forest ground here, something like this. I'm not gonna make it too big. And then maybe I make it a little bit more detailed, just in case I want to add a little bit more lighting. Just fill this in. This is not like very economical what I'm doing right now, but
It don't matter.
yeah. By the way, like today's will be pretty heavy because I'm focusing on like gradients and stuff like that. But if you want to share it to Media Studio, you would have to like heavily optimize this stuff. But let's say this is like the forest ground, so we call it ground. And the reason why I put some different colors in there is just to see the structure, you know, like I like to like have some randomization in there. And then we put some trees in here. So let me draw some trees. And at this moment, I'm not worrying too much about color yet. It's more about design of the scene. It's not going to be like a crazy, beautiful thing, but you know.
That's funny because that process that you're doing right now, I normally don't do it in color. I do black and white, just a sketch,
So yeah, so
a line sketch.
very. So I'm like a painter, right? I don't consider myself as a drawer. So I always think in volumes, even if I paint in 2D. And there's no one important thing to note is there's no one way to do things, right? Like this is the way I work. There's the way you work, you know, and so this is something important for you guys to know. You know, like for example, some people like to start with grayscale and colorize it later. That doesn't work for me at all because once I have the grayscale colors already laid in there, that will mess with my color perception. So I can't even light properly anymore. You know, I feel like helpless when I have like so many values in there already. So what I usually do is like I have a shortcut, not here but in Photoshop, where I can turn it to grayscale real quick, you know, just to check the values.
Check the light and dark.
Correct, yeah. But I can't deal with it when it's already in there, you know? Like when I already made a shading and stuff, that's like too complicated for me because color is relative. Color changes once you put a different color next to it, you know? So
relative to the neighbors.
Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm just gonna create a half dome for you guys because now this is like the moment where I start thinking about, okay, this is gonna define my environment, right? The moment I put the sky in, then my thinking start shifting towards lighting. So because now I'm like, okay, this is the sky, and now I start noticing, oh, the ground is way too monochrome, way too brown, you know, and that's when I can already start thinking about, okay, the shadow color of the ground will probably be something more like this, more purple, more blue in there, you know, something like this.
So you chose purple just randomly, like, okay, this is a cool color that will go.
No, I know that these are.
It's a mixture between blue and the brown.
So I know that these are leaves, right? And leaves on the ground, they're brown, but because the brown mixes with the sky color, it becomes a purple. So it's not random.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like
Well,
very
also,
conscious.
Goro, the shadow color is usually the complement of your light color. So if your light, I'm assuming, is like the sun, the opposite of that is in the purple range. So you'll always want to use a complementary range, but then affect it by what the material is, the fact that those leaves are brown. You know,
affected by the local color, yeah. And also, of course, if it's overcast and stuff, everything plays into this, right? But So I'm choosing like now like a slightly different value for the hue for the trees that you see still like a difference in local color, but they are brown, but they are also cool colored right now. So let me put some bushes in there right now. And for the bushes, I'm already already choosing like a cool green. So this is like, I go straight in, and the moment I put it down, I see like, oh, I have to adjust a little bit, you know, like because I think of the shadow color. So let me do this real quick, and then the canopy, maybe we have like a lighter green a little bit. Let me create a new layer for this. I create new layers so I can colorize them later easily. And before I light it, I want to also duplicate this entire folder, so I can actually use it for different lighting scenarios before I get into the lighting. But let me put some canopy in here. By the way, if you want to make like an optimized version, you know, don't work like this. Make sure you do rough shapes first, and then put some detail on the silhouettes, you know. But this is a lighting class, not an optimization class. Okay. And this is good, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And then let me put some rocks in there as well. What is this layer? This is the sky.
Do you think about saturation at this point or not?
No, I think of shadow color really, you know, like this is like my main concern. Saturation comes like, so basically like sunlight saturate things a lot in the highlights, right? So I will show in a bit like what I'm thinking at this point, but let me finish the initial like props that I want to put in there. So for example, for the rock, this will look like a rock in shadow, I believe, right? So right now, a lot of people ask me like, how do you choose this color? And that comes through experience, right? Like I kind of, because it's really difficult to determine a shadow color if you don't know how to do it. So this comes through a lot of study and training that you can actually guess what the local color of the rock would look like in shadow, right? So this is something that is not easily explained. It's more like, well, the easy explanation is, you know, you have to practice and study and really learn how local colors change according to lighting. So again, let me see. This looks pretty good. I think it needs to be a little bit bluer, a little bit darker at this with the sky color. Something like this. So this looks pretty good. All right, so now let me bring the character in here. So I'm gonna duplicate the character and bring it into the sunny scene. Come on, there he is. Okay, maybe he sits here. Yeah, sit him down here. So put his leg up, maybe he's sitting. Oops, don't wanna select his hand. Something like this. And the way I separated him is like skin color, right? Mouth, and then the logo on his chest, the pupil, and then the whites on one. So this is like just for convenience, because I'm gonna focus on color today, you know, not on animation. If I would animate him, I would probably set him up differently. But let me put him here. That's cute. The composition, I want to put him more in the center. So let me somewhere here, and then let's space this out a little to make it more interesting. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe this one a little bit lower, just like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, so you see that the alien is like completely wrong right now, but let me, before I forget, let me just duplicate this whole folder and call it Overcast. Let's see how far I get today, and then I will duplicate it again and call it Night. And I will keep it for later. Okay, so now we have the sunny version. So I have to work on the alien. So I go to the white. White in shadow will be something like, it will reflect a lot of the sky color. So it will be something like this. right? And then you see how now the purple or the pink starts glowing weirdly. And that's because it almost feels like it changed hues because I changed the white to a cool blue. So that's why it's like so, that's why color is so difficult and complex, because it always changes depending on what you put next to it. Now it looks like the local color again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me
You
put
just
the logo
you made it a little more bluer, right?
bluer and
darker.
more darker purple. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then the pupil, this needs to be also.
Yeah, you're really adjusting value at this point, which is really important. Like value sells the reality more than the hue. So if you change that purple to orange, it would be less important than if you got that value right.
Yeah.
So now I look at this and I see like the white is still too white. I can actually go bluer, and look how blue I am, right? But it doesn't look blue because everything else is cooler, right? So now I add a little bit more blue, and now it looks like white in shadow to me, all right?
White in shadow, yeah.
So in my head though, let me get to the alien again. Duplicate this alien. Show it. In my head though, I always have this alien in my head. Like this is how I think, you know? Let me just merge into one layer. Oops, did I do it? Merge them down. Yeah, there we go. So now what lighting does is it brings back these colors. All right, this is how I think. So I'm not a big fan of like talking too much about color theory. I think like thinking of this helped me to like, this is like kind of a method that I came up with, like how I teach is, you know, light brings local color back. So don't start with a local color, always start with a shadow color. Again, this is not the one way to do it, but that's what works for me really well because I can control lighting perfectly with this. Because now...
That's a great shortcut, Goro. That's a really good approach because it's sort of like drawing on dark paper. If you've ever colored on dark,
correct.
on a dark background, you're basically only adding light.
You reveal the light, correct.
Yeah, you're revealing the light.
Because now... Because I always try to find a way, how can I best, you know, keep control over what I'm doing? Because in the beginning, when I was starting to learn, I was always lost. I'm like, I don't know how this works and stuff like that. And the cool thing is once you understand how this works, you can apply this to any 3D software as well. So when I render in Redshift and stuff, I know exactly what to do. And before I didn't, I would just rely on something. Oh, I put a HDRI map in there, or, you know, put a spotlight in there without really knowing what I'm doing. But now I can just perfectly control what I want to do, you know, because I have the fundamentals. So that's why it's so important to learn everything and study this stuff, learn from references in life. So we're gonna have the key light coming from here. And the reason why I usually don't do like a light from here is it makes direct light from the front makes everything look flat. So that in general doesn't look good. So it's always better to have something 3/4 or backlit and stuff to get like a really good balance of like light and shadow. So today I'm gonna decide to light it a little bit from behind. So the light is coming directly from here. And then we have the bounce light coming from the bottom, and we have the fill light coming from here, right? Because it's the opposite side of the main key light source. So those are the light sources. And then I start with the environment first because, again, the environment defines how this guy is lit. Maybe he catches some shadow of the canopies and stuff like that, right? So let me just tilt the tree a little bit to make sure that it's justified if he catches some shadow. And now I go to the canopy layer and start like painting a little bit more variance within the shadow. So also one important thing to note that a lot of people forget, it's also logical if I say it, but you won't do it, is that you have shadows within the shadows and highlights within highlights, right? So there's like darker darks and brighter brights. So this is something that sounds very logical, and you would say like, oh, of course, yeah, makes sense. But if you actually do it, you won't do it. So you might have noticed that like sometimes you create a character. So let's say this is like a character, and you do the trick that I showed in the past where you duplicate it and you just light it like this, right? And you think it's lit, but actually, if the light is coming from here, there's a lot of nuances in how the light changes according to how it's facing the light. And once you start like adding all those different complexities, all of a sudden it looks really complex, and it starts looking like really realistic, right? So there's like a little highlight here, there's a little highlight here, and maybe there's a brighter one here, because this is facing directly the light, right? And all of a sudden, you see that it becomes more complex with just a few brush strokes, right? So it's easy to think that, oh, this is all in highlight, so it's one color, but it's actually not, right? So just be aware of that. So same principle with the canopy right now. So the canopy will be like going towards like some bright yellows, I believe. So I put some bright yellows here. But then I pick the color here, and where it's facing away from the light slightly, you know, it starts like falling off. So there's not the same highlight everywhere, right? So it's actually like there's variations in there. And then we might have some really bright greens where we have the translucency, where actually the light hits the top and then it comes through the actual greens, right? So you can add like some translucency here. And I'm on purpose right now not using color dodge and burn, because you're only allowed to use it if you know how to. And that's like a really important thing to remember. It might be easy for you to think like, oh, I just use color dodge and burn to brighten stuff and to control highlight and shadow with multiply. But in reality, if you use it, you will let the tool decide what colors to choose, and you're not choosing it yourself. But you can use color dodge and burn if you know how to choose the colors, because then you can make it work, right? So you see how this starts working now, right? So this looks pretty cool. Let me add a little bit more brighter colors here, and then a little bit more shadow down here. A little bit of greens. More greens here. This looks pretty cool. And then we work on the tree trunks. So for the tree trunks, I want to have a little bounce light here. So I'm starting to think about bounce light already, just a little, because the light might hit this area. So I'm actually going to show it now. So for example, on the ground, let's choose now the areas that get hit by light. So we have like those red leaves, yellow leaves. I'm just going to colorize it like this. So maybe this area gets hit by light, right? And then there's another area here that gets hit by light. And maybe there's another area here where it just comes through the canopy here, and then this area might get hit by light. So we have these three hotspots, right? And now I'm imagining a leaf pile that looks like this. We have local color here. This would be the local color. We have like a bunch of leaves, different colored leaves. And this is kind of what I'm imagining right now, what the ground looks like. So I could actually pick that color and mix that in there, and it will work just as well. So now I'm thinking about the local color of the leaves, you know.
Just mixing it with whatever you painted before.
Yes. So of course you can use that color dodge here, right? And make it faster. But see, like if you use dodge, this is not the color you want, right? So you need to know it's probably something more like, okay, I don't like this, so I need a little bit more red. See, this is more like what I'm looking for, right? So this is what I mean with you cannot rely on the tool, because the tool does whatever it wants, right? So for example, here it goes way too much to the reds. But if you don't know the fundamentals, you might not know that it's doing it wrong, right? So in that case, like I would just, you know, pick this color and fix it and bring the shadow color back here.
Yeah, sometimes I try like just like you do. I try to see what the dodge does, and if I don't like it, I don't use it. But sometimes it brings up some color, and then I do just that. I pick up color and I go back to normal and repaint it the way I want. But sometimes there's a surprise that dodge gives me that I didn't expect, and but yeah, you have to know what you're doing.
It's better to know, because then
make a decision yourself. Yeah,
exactly. So now you see like, okay, it still doesn't look like light, you know, and that's because Everything else is not lit yet. But like I'm building up towards that, right? So basically now here, I could like select this tree and add like bounce light, right? Just like slight bounce light here. Maybe that was too aggressive, something like this. And then maybe here, let me see. This is actually all in shadow, but maybe here I could add a little bit of rim light. And here too. And just duplicating the tree. That looks pretty good. And maybe this area is catching a little bit of light. So it's this area. Just a little bit. That looks pretty cool, right? So now I go to the bushes, and the bushes will have a big rim light here. Rim light is still the key light, but it's probably something like this. Boom. Right? So now you start feeling the light, and obviously, like here, you wouldn't have light in the shadow. So you have to like remove it or move it out a little. So you have to control it because you know where the light is coming from. It's coming from there. So now again, here, you might have areas that are brighter brights in the highlights, right? Just by adding this, you see how much more volume it gets, right? So it's not just one value in the highlights. There's actually more values, right? So like this area will get a lot more a brighter highlight versus like then we have a small fall off, and then you see like how amazing it looks already, like with just like those little value changes. Same here in the shadow side. If you now emphasize the fill light a little bit, it becomes instantly really, really nice, right? It's like more than just a blob of color, right? So you see like, oh, this is cool. It's starting to work, right? Same thing here.
More dynamic.
Yeah. And then
what is your theory on the transition between light and hard shadow? There's always like a transition color between these two.
Those
What's
are called
your thinking on that?
Those are called the halftones, and in white light, usually the halftones are the most saturated. So
more saturation.
Yeah. Usually that's the rule, but I don't worry too much about that. And like at this stage, I usually think really about like light and shadow. So now we start like let me save a little quick and go to the rocks, right? Let me see what the times are. Okay, we're 40 minutes in. Let's see how far I get. But I definitely can finish the sunlight scenario here. So here for the rock, I choose something like this, right? Look at that. And maybe here, it catches a little bit of light here. And maybe some bounce as well. This is pretty good. And then here, let me add maybe like a really bright highlight. Boom. So now it starts to work really well. And of course, this needs to be justified. So for example, here on the ground, you have to make sure that the light, where's the ground layer? The light is justified, right? So
it's the same value as that.
And in this case, this would get like really bright too here, like a really bright spot. And then this gets a little bit darker over here. So now I have enough information, like, okay, this one is wrong actually. So let me push that back and push that in a little. And then I will add a little bit of fill light on the top portions of the rock as well. Just like, maybe I duplicate it just a little bit to add a little bit of top lid fill light. Something like this. Same here. So here I can actually maybe consider adding a little bit of greens because of this fill light from the, like it gets blocked by the canopy, right? So now you have like a little color vibration here, which makes it look really nice. All right, so now the magic. Now I know exactly how to light my little fellow here. Let me fix one thing little quick here. This would be in shadow. So on the rock layer, I don't want this highlight. Okay, so now I go to my alien layer, and I go to the white, which is like his suit, and stuff. And what do? I bring the local color back. So because it's sunlight, I don't want to go like too far into the white. I'm gonna choose a really warm white here. And let's say, boom, maybe some of his dots get lit here. Part of the dots. And then here his shirt, and here's backlit. So this is like all lit because it gets like, it's lit. He's getting hit by light. And then this comes over his shoulder. And I can do it like I use the lathe technique here to be able to add gradients, you know. So that's why I can do like those smooth gradients. But if you use like a simpler technique, like Danielle did in his face tutorial, you can still apply the same knowledge, you know. You just have to like know how to create it. So what I'm doing like right now is I'm adding the fill light, the highlight within the shadows, right? So in the shadows we have like the sky fill coming from the top. So this is the sky fill. So it's a little bit brighter at the top. And then we have the bounce light coming from here. So I want, well, you know what? The bounce light could be from the rocks. So it's something more yellowish, just like this.
And it's good to remember that because the material of the shirt is white,
it reflects a lot.
It reflects the color more similar to the origin of the color that creates the reflection, right?
Correct. Yeah, because it absorbs a lot. It reflects a lot, not absorbs. Okay,
Yeah.
so I go to the skin now, right? And duplicate this a little bit. And then I bring back this color, right? So this is a local color that gets revealed by the sunlight, but I will let it fall off as it goes down because this is the brightest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one I can even push more, and then we have a shadow in here, right? So now you see like it looks like it's lit, right? And that gradient really shows you the fall off of the light. All right, let's keep going with the head. So because this is in light, I have to match this, right? I have to make sure that it follows the same rules. So we have light here, and maybe we have another dapple lighting here. Maybe I go over a little bit. And I always think of it as like there's a fall off. Like, so here it starts facing away from the sun, right? So there's a fall off. And then let me see here, because it hits the shirt, I want like a hot highlight here as well. So now you start feeling like, oh shit, he's lit, right? And it starts to work really well. And then you can go ahead and say like, okay, this is actually the brightest spot. This is pretty bright. And you can add the highlight within the highlight, and then it creates like this beautiful shading. And then you start adding like, okay, like the sky fill here makes it brighter, but also like cooler at the top. So you can mix a little bit more cooler purples in here, where it's facing directly up to the sky. So get like this really cool effect. And then you can say like, okay, there's some bounce light coming from the rocks, which goes more towards like a warmer red right here. So this is the bounce light. So you see like, okay, this is too strong. And I think I have to go a little bit purple. Just like this. Let's see. Yeah, that looks better. Bless you. Whoever's sneezing. And then
I think maybe my wife.
Okay, so here this portion will catch a little bit of light here, but will also catch a lot more of the sky fill on this side, right? So,
oh, that's cool, man.
So you have like this nice little edge, you know, and then this, because it's facing down from the face, it's gonna be darker. Just like what you said about the chin, Danielle, in your tutorial, you know. And because there's another portion of the eye which is kind of facing up to the sky, this area will be brighter. Let me push that in, just like this. and then maybe grab tool it, push it in
Yeah.
like that. Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed that this is too dark, so I'm gonna bring this back. Select this and then bring it closer to the face value. And that looks good. Okay.
I love what you did there because it gives you a sense of the volume of that eyelid.
Yep.
Like there's a portion of the eyelid that's facing the floor.
Yep.
And there's a little portion of the eyelid, the little thickness face, and that little part is facing the sky a little bit more.
Yep. Totally.
And you really had to think about, oh, is this surface facing the light source or not? Like, and that's kind of the way you decide the color and the value.
Correct.
Of that particular surface that you're painting.
So for example, here the eye, right? The eye white, because it's facing up the sky, this area will be brighter, but still blue because it's filled by the sky fill, right? But now you can do something magical because it's like a little bit liquid, and this is like where the material properties come in. You can try to add a little bit of warmth because it's reflecting the ground. And look at what happens now. It's really cool. It starts to vibrate, right? So
it really comes out.
Yeah, look at that. Boom. Right, and now you can think about the blue section as well. So usually this part is facing up the sky, so you can
that's kind of
you can do something like this, and then it looks like it's like lit from the top, right?
Yeah, you have to understand that the iris is like an indent.
Yeah.
On the eyeball, so you have a sphere, which is the eyeball.
Yeah,
the iris is like you take a spoon and you take a and you make a hole in that sphere, and that's the iris.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the Death Star.
It is the Death Star. Yeah, totally. Okay, well, I think we only have
Johnson was thinking.
We're already, I just noticed we're already only like 15 minutes left, so I will try to do a different lighting scenario here. So let me see.
Beautiful, man. It's so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. So
time trial, here we go.
So this is like pretty, like this is like the sunny scene, right? So now let's go to let me try to just wing Overcast a little quick. Let's see if I can do it a little quick. So for Overcast, you know, we would have a sky that's like more gray. And this is where the sky becomes more warmer. So warmer meaning like it's going to be a warm gray. Something like this. And then I will try to get through this a little bit quicker. And then the actual canopy and stuff becomes warmer than it would be warmer than the shadow side of a sunny day. So that's what I mean.
And less saturated too.
Yeah. Actually, there's still quite a bit of saturation in there. It's really just a temperature shift, you know.
Yeah, because we're talking about overcast, so there's still sun. The sun is still there. It's just being blocked by this layer of filtering clouds.
Correct.
So yeah.
Usually, what happens is that you get what is called the ambient occlusion rather than full-on shadows.
It's only ambient occlusion, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the shadows that happen between objects that are close to one another.
Yep. So what I'm doing right now is I'm adjusting everything to the ambient color. So that's why gray days are really difficult, because you really have to know what you're doing to make this work, right? So because you have to know how does the local color change if I don't have a key light. Like, it's a little bit difficult. So like I'm just trying to like do it like really quickly, but you see that now the sky fill is not blue anymore because it's a gray day, right? So it's like the rocks are not bluish, and they're more like similar to the sky color, right? So
yeah, some photographers prefer overcast days because of the you get more detail on your texture of the material of your subject that you're photographing, right? Because you
Right.
don't have that huge contrast
It's
between
not
light
like
and
a
shadow.
harsh light. Yeah, exactly. So what I'm gonna try to do now is like I'm gonna make it a little bit foggy, even a little bit gloomy. So what I'm gonna do is I pick the background color here and just colorize it on top. So people say like, oh, for fog, do you use transparency and stuff? Again, if you use transparency, you let the tool decide about the colors. But if you choose it yourself, you can just colorize it, and you don't have to worry about this stuff, you know. So this looks pretty good. Let me work on the ground a little bit. So this was okay. This was 3 minutes so far. I just have to like position the character, and then I will imply a little bit of ambient occlusion here with the rocks as well. So in the rock at the bottom, it will get a little bit darker. I might duplicate it slightly. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just ever so slightly a little bit darker. Any other questions so far? No?
Nah, you're good, bro.
All right, bro. All right.
You're good, bruh.
Okay, so then see how like how different he looks now, right? Like it looks like completely out of place. So I have to bring him closer to everything. So for example, the skin will probably be something like this. Something like this. The white, because it will reflect a lot of the sky, and there's no blue in there, it will probably be something, I will make it a little bit cooler, but it will probably be something like this, right? And then the logo, I always have to like see what it was in the beginning. It's like this purple. It's probably something like this. Boom. And then the eye is something desaturated and dark, something like this. There we go. And now it looks like he's kind of in fog in this lighting, right? I think the skin can be a little bit darker actually. So let me make the skin a little bit darker. Looks good. Okay, and now all you can do is like work within the shadows, right? So because there's no direct highlight, so you go like, okay, the top portion of the head will be like lit like this, and then you have the eyelid. Duplicate the eyelid, and let me turn on the thing again, the wireframe. This will be the eyelid. And just grab tool it up a little, just like this. And then
the light is coming. The light comes from the sky. It's just like a real.
That's all you have, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like a softer.
There's no
filter.
Direct light. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a diffused light. That's the word, diffused, right?
Yep. Correct. And then here, you can actually duplicate the entire hand, move it up, and colorize it with a highlight color, and something like this. Is it doing it? Yeah, it is. So it's something like this. And let me do the same here. Boom. Again, highlight within the highlight, right? And then ambient occlusion here and here. You have the contact shadow here. And it makes all the difference, you know? Like it really looks different once you do that. I think my transparency is too much, but then I'm going to duplicate the legs and then move them up a little. And then see, I have 5 minutes for the nighttime. I'm almost done with this one, but try to do the night scenario as well a little quick. So I might go a little bit over, but I'm confident and I think I can do it. Okay, and then we have the white. So white because it's a gray sky, there won't be any blue in there, right? So, but you will have plane change. So you will see that the top portions reflect still a little bit more of the gray. And there won't be too much bounce light here because there's no direct light. So there will be much more ambient occlusion on here. And now it looks like he's like sitting in fog, right? So this is pretty cool. Maybe the rock needs to be a little bit darker. So for that stuff, I can use like multiply if I want to like darken stuff a little bit, you know, something like this. And then I think the ground is a little bit too desaturated and also too dark. So I'm gonna bring back the ground, actually bring a little bit of saturation back and a little bit of color back. Let me go. And you see, like a lot of times I put a color in and then I notice it's completely wrong. So then I fix it, you know, because I notice once I lay it down, I notice instantly that it's not the correct color, which comes from experience. So I want to make it look like leaves, the leaf color, the local color I was talking about before, in foggy scenario, right? So it's like, this is what I mean when it's fairly saturated still, you know, see? But it's warmer than the sky. And it's cooler than the sky, I mean, still, but it's still pretty saturated. So let me bring this. This looks pretty good. I think I went too warm. Cool it down a little, make it a little bit more gray. Something like this. Yeah, that looks good. So now we have the overcast, right? So this is like how you can do some. This is overcast plus gloomy, a little bit foggy. So I pushed the limits a little bit. But this is how you can do this. And then let's go to nighttime. So now we have nighttime. Let me fix the sky. For the nighttime, we want something like, okay, I have 3 minutes for night. Great. But I will go over a little bit. It's no problem.
Just showing how fast it gets when you're good.
Just use multiply and boom. Everything blue, that's it, nighttime.
Yeah. So that's exactly like what people think, right? Then it's all about tricks, but it's actually not, you know, like if you're actually faster if you know it.
No, obviously, like
I know that was a
any
joke.
discipline, and
Yeah.
with any discipline, obviously, the more experienced you are, the quicker you go into the right solutions.
Because what it means, what practice, I mean, the word the saying practice makes perfect is so true. Because what it does is just like you get to the goal without making mistakes. That's why you're fast. So it's not because the tool makes you fast, right? It's more like, well, in Quill, it's also the tool that makes you a little bit faster.
Yeah, like Goro is fast not only in Quill, he's also fast at Photoshop.
Correct. Correct.
Any other tool that he uses to paint.
The tool doesn't matter. Yeah.
Exactly. You're fast because you're experienced. You know what you're doing, and you go directly without kind of doing palos de ciego.
Yeah, you just.
How do you say that in English?
Well, you basically don't experiment.
Blind stick it.
Yeah, you just
don't blind stick it.
Yeah, you go straight to the result, right? So
I don't know why that expression came out to me in Spanish instead of in English, because I don't know the English. I know, but I just spacing. I'm blanking out right now. Another thing that I wanted to ask you: do you think about storytelling when you're lighting? When you're like, oh, this needs to be a little bit more contrast than this because
Absolutely.
I want the audience to really focus on that.
Absolutely, super important, right? But it's another topic. It's
another, so lighting and storytelling will be another topic, right?
So yeah, so just like when you draw, right, and you draw attention with level of detail in some points, just like that, you can use the lighting as well, right? But more importantly, whenever you tell a story, the visual structure is so important. So I always think of visual structure as something like, how can I help the story visually, right? So nothing is by accident. Every design that you see has a reason why it's there,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that is like super important for sure, but that requires like an extra lesson, I think, you know.
Yeah. And color too. Color is also telling
Yeah,
different stories
for
and
example,
helping
you know,
you
for example,
direct the
like
eye.
in Remedy, you have the volcano, right? It's dangerous. It's all red. It would feel very different if it's not a volcano and if she's like in a galaxy and it's all blue. Then it might look beautiful and it might not actually sell the danger that you wanted to sell, right? So there's a reason why you chose a volcano and why it's red and stuff, you know, because you want
Yeah.
to convey danger, you know. And
Yeah.
this is also stuff like, for example, if when I worked on Madagascar 3, for example, Dubois, the animal control lady, the dangerous one,
Yeah.
like whenever she appears, it's more like harsh shadows, and there's always something red in there to imply danger, right? So it goes pretty deep, you know, like.
Yeah, so it's a whole different lesson.
Yeah.
The psychology of color, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, all of that stuff
And
is a whole
design
different
and
thing.
everything, like it's actually like a really complex matter that a lot of people don't know about, you know, like.
And there's a lot of YouTube videos that people talk about you can find online on this kind of thing.
Yeah, I really like that side of storytelling.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the audience doesn't need to know that, you know, but they will feel it.
Yeah, you feel like a magician, like
Yeah.
you're putting little tricks and you're guiding the audience with little changes of color, light, contrast.
Yeah.
And the audience, without even noticing, they're reacting to what you're doing in there.
Exactly.
And they're falling for the trick. So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's super satisfying when it works.
Yeah, totally. And then we put a moon here. Let's put it on this side this time, you know.
That's awesome.
To change it up a little. And let's put the moon here. And now, because the moon is not like the sun, it's like cool, right? So you can use like cool highlights because it's not enough. There's mostly it's sky, and the moon is weak in terms of lighting, so it's not gonna have like the same effect. It's not gonna bring back the local color too much. It's more like a supercharged fill light, you know.
Yeah. So to bring those colors, for example, on the canopy, you choose first the canopy color and then you change it, right?
Not necessarily. Like right now, you see, like I'm just jumping. I'm just picking the color I want. Like sometimes I just pick it to see like, oh, I want to go darker than this, right? And then I pick it and look at it, and I'm like, I want to go darker. But a lot of times, like for example, if I take this tree and I mix it, I don't bother picking this color. I just go to like, okay, the highlight color is probably something like this, you know, and then I put it in there, and then I change it if it's not what I want. So it's like very targeted, you know.
That's really interesting, because what I do is pick up the color of the tree.
Yeah.
And then look at the palette and then go, okay, I want something a little brighter. Or
yeah,
you,
but
you don't. You just you already know.
Because the thing is, because you can't rely on that. It's not always similar to the color you pick. You know, like the highlight side is very different from, like, for example, this has nothing to do with this, you know, like it's not necessarily like in the same family dependent on lighting scenario, right? So that's why it's better to know which color to pick, because sometimes that way you can also break the rules, right? So if you need to like emphasize something, you know. So.
And do you find sometimes like mixing, for example, you're mixing this color right now and with the original color on
absolutely yeah. So when
and then the mixed color is something interesting to you, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna pick that mixed color.
Yeah. For example, I mixed this one, right, and I use it for the fill color, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, that's a really great part of Quill too. It's so easy to do that.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, we're only 5 minutes over so far, so I'm going to just create like a little animation. Just because you say like leading the eye, right?
Of course, you got time. You got time.
So you were saying like, yeah, how to lead the eye and stuff like that. You know, you can have like a little fire here. And
Or the moon hits the alien in such a way that you see the alien more.
yeah, exactly. But I want, like, for example, this will be good because it will show you like how this changes everything around this.
Yeah.
So let me quickly do something here. Okay. Okay, bear with me. And then I will normalize the colors a little bit. Come on. A little bit brighter at the top. And then this is where I like to use color dodge. It makes me really feel good, like to supercharge the fire. It's too much. But, okay.
On the center, right? Or
yeah, exactly. And then maybe I can do something like this and move it around. Let me duplicate this and then rotate it a little bit and then offset the timing. So I have like more. So I'm gonna offset it and then merge it. So I have like a better fire. Okay, so now I have the wood. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, and then let me also grab a little bit of the ground. And like this is important for optimization, so I'm just gonna duplicate a little bit of the ground or put it on an extra layer and then animate this. So just like this. And it's too strong. So I'm gonna use regular color actually for this, not color dodge.
Yeah. For this kind of things, it's really useful.
Yeah. This is actually normal mode right now. Am I still on dodge? Yeah, it messed it completely. Yeah, messed it up completely. So let me just fix it.
This would take you hours with shaders and materials and renders and all that, and it wouldn't even have the hand drawn feel in Maya, Blender, or anything else.
Yep, absolutely. So let me fix the rocks here. So for the rocks, I'm gonna add a little bit of sky fill and a little bit of the moonlight from the background. So what I did is I duplicated it and then I just I want a cooler blue, something like this. There you go, that looks pretty good. Actually, this should be in shadow. So let me just fix that real quick. And then this moonlight could actually affect the ground. We can actually see a little bit of like highlight here. Maybe a little bit bluer. Go brighter. Yeah, that looks good. So this is actually the highlight where it comes from there. Blend this area a little bit so it feels like it's a little bit lit from the moonlight here, which is nice. And then we have actually a harsher shadow here from the rock, a direct shadow, something like this. Okay, and now what I would do is like grab the whole rock, duplicate it, move it forward, put it on a new layer, right? Add some frames, loop, and add the fire. Something like this. Let me move it down a little so it's not as aggressive. Something like this. And then let me fix the alien a little quick. We're not even 15 minutes over. Okay, let me finish this off because I neglected the alien. So the alien, the white in shadow will probably be something like this. So now it's really hard to see, right? Because it's like this crazy purple. So once I adjust the purple, I might have picked the right color, but I don't know until I do. So go down here. And now it looks like white again, right? So it's like I love how color like relates to each other, you know, like it's like pure magic how it's all relative. And then the mouth.
It's like the picture of the dress, the gold and the.
Totally, yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
People are saying like,
Remember
"Oh,
that?
it is." I know it is like
gold,
blue.
gold
No,
and
it's gold.
green. No, it's blue and.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny. And then you see like now the pupil is like completely off. So let me bring that down as well. And boom, all of a sudden it works again, right? So now this needs to be darker, and then let me do this one, move the highlight down. It's gonna be the fire highlight. It's gonna be like this, and then the white, white. So basically, yeah, let me do the moonlight first on the whites. So it will be the moonlight. Sky fill, the moonlight is here stronger here, over here. A little bit weaker over here. Oops. Moonlight. Yeah, okay. So we have more direct light coming from the top. And it reaches across here. The top portion is a little bit brighter, and then we have the warm firelight. So I'm gonna indicate it here first before I animate it. It goes too far around, so it's probably more like this. And this is, and I add a little bit of purple in the transition here. Too strong. Much more subtle. That looks better. Okay, and then the eye will also have this nice little, because it's reflective, because the eye has a specularity, I can go a little bit stronger on the reflectivity. And then the skin, because it's fire. You guys are so silent. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I was
Just
like,
enthralled.
Yes.
I
You
was
need
like,
crickets.
am I alone?
Focus, man.
You know.
Deep focus.
No, man, we're with you, man. It's just amazed by it. How
You know
cool
what? When you said, look, because he's fire, I thought, now we're going to set him on fire.
That's you, Javier.
He's too cute. You can't set him on fire.
Yes, burn him to the ground.
So let me just. So actually, here the feet, I will probably only use the bottom parts and put it in lighting. Yeah, that looks good. And then for the chin, skin. Oops. What happened? Okay, skin. Okay, there we go. So skin, it's like really warm, so I can actually go much hotter here, I think. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then
You know what though? It looks almost the same as like a hyper realistic approach to like rendering.
Well,
I
it
think.
is. It is.
Yeah,
I'm doing PBR rendering in my head right now.
exactly. Yeah, I think it looks like your Photoshop paintings as well. So you can see, you know, because your knowledge of the light, it's really, it gives it like lifelike qualities, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, again, it comes down to the tool doesn't really matter at this point, you know, like I can make things look exactly the same because it's the same knowledge you apply, right? And when you see my redshift renders, they have the same type of quality. It's just more detailed, you know, but it's the same type of stuff. Okay, so this area, because it's catching a lot of this light, because it's facing more directly, you can make it a little bit hotter. Boom, right? And then, okay, that one was a little bit too aggressive, but that way you can bring it, see? And then this area catches most of the light. So just this area here is a little bit brighter. And that makes all the difference, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to animate him. just the fire. So because I have the bases locked down, maybe I put like 6 frames or something, 7 frames, and then I add a little bit of flicker here. So
I'm really imagining he's roasting a marshmallow, Goro. Sorry.
yeah, he should have a stick.
I know you're gonna do it just because
Yeah.
someone said.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
He's white like a marshmaillow too.
I knew
His
it.
shirt has a
I
circle
knew
of a
it. It's
marshmallow.
too tempting.
Fine. I'm gonna do it. Oh yeah. So now we can even have a little bit of, like subsurface scattering here. You just gave me an idea. So let me add
And
some
that's what Quill
scattering
does to
here.
you.
There we go. Some.
Once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah, that's the Quill.
That's the Quill
symptom.
addiction.
Yeah.
Quillaholics Anonymous.
You know what? This is actually the opposite now. It
That's
needs
funny.
to be like this. It needs to be like the highlight comes out like this.
We need help.
We do.
Quill
We
help.
really do.
Quill help group, self-help group. Okay.
But
so-
we're forcing Goro to go further. Come on, Goro. Come on. Do an animation, Goro.
It's funny. So that's
Find him in a back alley. Hey, you want to animate?
Right, right.
You want to do more animation, right?
Right, exactly. I got a walk cycle. I got a jump for you. What do you need?
Oh yeah. I'm sure you can make this scene a little bit more complicated. Tell the story with us. Come on, come on.
His ears, Goro, they need sub-scattering.
Yeah, I can have more details.
This is true true entertainment right now.
Nothing is good like a good marshmallow, but it's better with a friend.
Uh-oh.
Okay, it's TMI.
It's better with
No, honestly, I think it would be fun to have a stream. It would be fun to have a stream where we all just give Goro requests like from the start, and he just that's the whole stream. That would be fun.
Oh no.
No, I think he's alone.
He does all of our wishes in real time.
That'd be torture.
Just no, I think he's alone.
Does that mean that I'm gonna see Goro burning the alien to the ground?
Oh yeah.
Is that gonna happen? In real time?
No violence here, please.
Oh man.
Oh god, he cooked that thing.
Wow, that's
Nice.
so sad. It should be burnt, man.
It's a s'more, right?
Yes.
S'mores burn a little bit, so.
That's a pretty burnt s'more. If it's on fire like that.
He's
That's
an
usually
alien.
what happens
He's
with
an
mine.
alien, so.
That's usually
Where's
when
the
you don't
melted
want to eat
chocolate?
that.
Well, to be fair, something got burnt in the end. You know, I'm happy with that.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
Make it heavier.
I know.
Come on, man.
There you go. This
I'm
looks
worried
cute,
about
though.
your neighbors, Javier. I'm worried.
Nah, they don't even know I'm here because I never get out of the house.
That doesn't help. That doesn't make it better.
I never got out of the house.
So
But who lives there?
here I see that the logo was I forgot the logo because the logo is like in light. I think now I forgot what the logo color is, so I just check and it's like purple. So the purple will
Maybe
come back,
the
right?
material on the logo is vinyl. It's more reflective. Maybe it catches more of the.
Maybe, yeah.
It's catching more of the
Oh,
light
man.
of the fire.
Dang
Come on,
you.
do it.
Yeah, like this.
There you go. You see?
Jokes aside, though, I think the night scene is my favorite one.
It looks
Well,
beautiful.
what we're gonna
Yeah.
do is like we're gonna compare them all, right? So we're gonna
Mhm.
because the cool thing is I will be able to switch them. It's like a light
Mm.
switch because they're like all in the same position. So we
Yeah.
have this. Yeah, this looks pretty good, right? So I didn't get to show the effects that I wanted to show, like particles and stuff like that. But that's fine, I guess. Let me just do this. We're gonna add like a stop, right? So I'm gonna add a stop here. Let me put these all in sequences. Overcast, sunny. I mean, they're not animated. Only the overcast is animated. Let me put a stop here, and then I'm going to put this all on, and then I put span it all out. Let me put another stop here. And then stop this. And now we will be able to, this is sun. This is overcast. And this is night. So basically, sun, overcast, and night. And you see like how the local color changes drastically by the way the environment color changes.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think I got through all I wanted except the effects.
Good lighting demo. Very nice.
Well,
Yeah.
that was the purpose. All about lighting today, you know. So but yeah, I hope this was helpful. You know, it is a very, very complex matter. So don't worry if you try to do it and you don't get it done at all, because that's what's going to happen if you have never dealt with it. Because it's basically like asking somebody, you know, like, hey, play basketball by not ever have touched in basketball. You know, like, it's impossible. So it takes time. It takes time to gain this amount of knowledge and skill. It took me 15 years to get here, to get to this level, right? But I feel like I still just barely scratched the surface. I learn new stuff every time I paint, you know, every time I do lighting studies and stuff. There's always new stuff that you can learn. And it gets much more complex than that, but I try to, you know, take it step by step, simplify it as much as possible, and don't talk about color theory too much, more about like, you know, like little methods and that I found that helped me to break stuff down. So yeah, any questions?
It's very interesting what you did, because also you were able to like put it together, all the different lighting styles in such a few in a few minutes. I think it helps a lot understanding how to do it in a simple way that still works, as in like less is more. I think it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, this is like what I think through. Like I always think of the local color. This is the local color, right? This is what I bring back. See, like when I put him in light, it actually doesn't look that bad. If I put him in shadow, it doesn't work at all, right? So basically what light does, it brings the local color back. So if you, and then that's why it's difficult if you have diffuse lighting, like the overcast, because then you cannot rely on light that brings the local color back. You have to know what the ambient color is. So that's why overcast is not what you should start with learning. Always go with sunlit scenarios first because it's easier. Same goes for like nighttime. You only have like the moonlight to work with, or blue light, and it's very difficult unless you have like a light source like that. So when you start off, I would always recommend have something where you see a clear separation of light and shadow, that you can actually study how light works before you jump into like more difficult scenarios like this. So yeah, hope this was helpful. I'm gonna stop the recording now and we can keep on chatting a little bit. So see you guys next time.